Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 369. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Another week, another run of Night Terrors. That really is the Night Terror in and of itself.
But with each week, we are closer and closer to the end of Night Terrors, and that's the important thing to keep in mind. Yes, this is a DC Comics podcast where we talk about the books we read every week. Here on the show, coming up on this episode, we have Night Terrors issue 3, we got Night Terrors Shazam issue 2, and Night Terrors Zatanna issue 2. That was all the Night Terrors we could stomach this week, so that's all you get into that. But we also have the Superman Annual 2023, we got World's Finest Teen Titans issue 2, although I forgot to put the number in my list there. We have Spirit World issue 4, Matt read that. And we have, of course, Danger Street issue 8, kind of the main event of the week, I'd say, in a lot of ways. And then I did a Patreon book. I'll be talking about Batman and the Outsiders issue 5. So that is what's coming up on the show this week. So yes,
Yep.
yeah, there's not a ton of news, but there's kind of a weird retraction to something that was a week or two ago. Remember when I said Gal Gadot was saying, "Oh yeah, as James Gunn said, we'd develop a Wonder Woman 3 together."
Gotcha.
Yeah, apparently that wasn't true. The story's out this week that there's no plans right now to develop a Wonder Woman 3, and I don't know what's happened here. I mean, it makes Gal Gadot look like she was trying to will it into existence, or someone lied to her. Perhaps that's a possibility, I guess, but. The whole thing's a bit of a mess.
It was probably Nathan Fillion that lied to her, because I feel like James Gunn sends Fillion to turn on the charm. You know, just go tell Gal we're working on something.
What's the scenario?
She won't be mad at you.
Are you imagining Gal Gadot like banging on the front door of the office and like him sending Fillion down to like send her away?
Here's how I would write it: is Gal Gadot keeps calling James Gunn, and James Gunn's like, I can't pick it up, conflict of interest, whatever. And so he calls up his good buddy, Nathan Fillion. He's like, hey, Nate, you know, you have a lot of charm. You go talk to Gal Gadot. Just tell her kind of what she wants to hear. And then Nathan Fillion, in pure comedic fumbling that, you know, he's known to do, you know, actually lets it out. He's like, oh, yeah, Wonder Woman 3? James Gunn? Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I can see it now.
Yeah, it's happening right after Shazam 3.
Yeah, my God. Shazam 1 was on right before I came up here. Still find that movie quite charming. I was watching it as I was finishing breakfast.
I mean, I enjoyed it well enough for what it was when it came out. I have had no desire to revisit it since. It
doesn't. So I just watched it again right before I watched 2, and it still hasn't really made its indents, right? Like, I always see it. I was like, oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. But there's never, like, I can never say like, oh, that was my favorite part, right? Like, it all just kind of melds together.
Yeah. That's just part of this, like, over superhero sort of populated world where in order to stand out, you have to be exceptional now as opposed to just good. And maybe that's where that falls. Although
my favorite things that are coming out now are just because there's so much, is that people going like, okay, so we're never talking about this again, right? So, like, Secret Invasion, because it was so low stakes, right? Like, it's probably, there's not going to be a lot coming out of that continuity-wise going forward. So seeing those posts pop up and the people get very upset so cracks me up.
Yeah, all I've heard are bad things, and I think at least a couple characters might have died in it that are important for later, maybe. But I don't care. I'm out. I'm so out of the Marvel train.
That was one that even I told my wife, I was like, yeah, we'll get caught up, and then we just never have. We started watching The Bear instead, which I highly recommend. Have you seen it, Pete?
Do you know, I've watched the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
It was a very tense, well-directed show, from what I've seen.
Yeah, if you get into it, let me know, because I was about it the same. I was in a holding pattern after the first 2, which I enjoyed, but it really comes in onto its own later in the season. Season 2 is pretty good. I'm about halfway through at this point, so... waiting for what we do in the Shadows to wrap up their season so we can just bang through those. You know, FX is a place right now.
Yeah, I just started reviewing the X-Files from the start in the last couple of weeks, so
Weren't you and Connor already doing X-Files?
No.
Oh, I thought you, maybe that was when the last movie was coming out, and that was years ago at this point. But yeah. I distinctly remember you covering X-Files.
No, we did like one short like new season, kind of like on its own years ago. But yeah, I've never seen the vast majority of it.
Okay.
So started doing that, and I'm also working through Person of Interest, also for reviews. Oh. So if you want my thoughts on either of these shows, you can get them in detail over in the Male Fuzz TV channel on YouTube. And you're still working through Twilight Zone? I see this pop up from time to time. Yeah, it's on pause just now, but yeah, Twilight Zone's still a thing that's happening. We have one Babylon 5 episode left, and that'll be done. And
wow.
We have the finale of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2 in the next few days coming out. So there's a lot going on. You know, the X-Files, I've had this kind of trepidatious like attitude towards it, because obviously it was a huge thing for pop culture. So I've always had that feeling that I should watch X-Files at some point. I should have that filled in and tick it off the boxes, all that. But there's also, you know, like a very, very mixed and muted receptions for how everything ended. And it's always kind of been this little damper on like the motivation to try it. But I needed another classic show to work through. I wanted something from the 90s, and this was the one that had the most interest. So yeah. I just did episode 3, which was pretty good, which I was happy for that, because episode 2 I thought was pretty weak. So it was nice to get like an example of a good episode. Yeah. So, okay, this is what I'm in for when I get good episodes. They're not all going to be good, obviously, but this is
do they start off as Case of the Week and then slowly build to the mythology of the show, or is it pretty mythology? So I've seen a couple episodes and then the first movie of X-Files, but I've never delved too deep.
Well, what's interesting about X-Files compared to other shows, that, you know, because when you think of this time period, you think of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you think of other shows of that ilk, and with all those shows, typically you'd have good standalone Case of the Week episodes, but typically the ones that would be the most exciting, that fans would really get excited for, would be the ones that like are doing the season-long plot, you know, the greater mythology episodes. With X-Files, it's kind of the inverse, where the greater mythology episodes, which there's I think a few per season, are maybe it's because it didn't build up to a satisfying conclusion, but those would never seem to be talked about that much. But people say that X-Files has some of the best standalone Case of the Week episodes of any of these types of show. And sure enough, the episode that I just did which was good, was a standalone Case of the Week episode. So it's funny though, because that is the inverse of every other show. Like, you know, Fringe was a fun Case of the Week show, but it got exciting when it became more serialized, when it started to build on its mythology and stuff like that. And maybe that's just a symptom, because X-Files was kind of, I don't want to say it's the first of its kind, but it's definitely they were experimenting with serialized television that really wasn't, like, I know Twin Peaks did a little bit before it, right? But Twin Peaks was definitely ahead of its time, for sure. Yeah, but that was more serialization than standalone, right? Like, it was soap opera-esque, where you kind of had to watch everything. Yeah, that was completely serialized, with the mystery elements and all that. X-Files is Case of the Week, but there is this sort of backbone ongoing thing, which is again, you know, would be improved upon and enhanced by other shows in the years that followed. So the one that I watched, and I don't know what season it comes in on, but it's later. They did a team up with the show Cops, and so it's filmed like Cops. And and so they're investigating. They bring in Mulder and Scully to investigate this guy. I can't remember what the full crux of it is, and just it's a really fun episode. I don't want to give too much away what it ends up being that they're investigating, but it really stuck out to me, and it was a fun episode. So I've always been wanting to go back through. So maybe they're 22 episode seasons, huh? They're pretty it's bulky. 9 22 episode seasons, and then one 6 episode season, and then I think the final one they did after that was like 10 episodes, I want to say. So I haven't jumped into Fringe right away, because it's 22 episodes just sitting there, and like in 45 minutes. It's a lot. That's nothing. That's only 5 seasons. That's a walk in the park. Yeah, I know, but that's 100 episodes. It's a lot of time. You know, not for a TV show. It's not like for other stuff maybe, but it's not for a TV show. I want to. I have the intent. It's all there. It's just a 42-minute network TV show, if it's good, is such an easy watch compared to these like hour-long prestige shows that are very dense. That is true too.
the newer model of the longer episodes.
There's less episodes, but each episode is more of a like, okay, we're sitting down for a full hour, maybe more than that for some of them, because they're kind of stretching their legs a bit now. 42
minutes does seem light and airy compared to some of the hour and 2 minute full, because you also have commercial breaks and stuff built in. And
the 42-minute format feels like a breeze to me compared to some other stuff. But so I'll see where that goes. We're early days still. Only done 3 episodes, but we're doing that weekly. So
you met Spooky Mulder by now. And,
yes, he's one of the 2 main characters. So yes, he's in the first episode.
I just mean like that whole because if I remember right, it takes a minute for Scully and him to click, right? So he's still kind of a little bit off this early into the season. The trust isn't quite there. So,
kind of. I mean, he is called Spooky Mulder in the first episode, though. That's not like a later thing.
Yeah. I do remember going to see the movie in 97. Was it 97 or 98?
Something like that.
Being completely lost. Got all wrapped up in the hype. And I remember people being there asking me and my dad, like, oh, so you guys excited? And my dad lying through his teeth. Oh, yeah, we watch every week. And he looks at me like, don't talk, boy. Right? And I remember watching that movie and it had something to do with bees. And I was just like, I'm out. Take me to see Lost World again, please.
But Lost World's so boring, Matt.
Not to 12-year-old me.
Lost World. Such a dull sequel. Oh no, I'll take 3 over Lost World any day of the week.
Yeah, but three's like a Taco Bell meal. You should be enjoying it, but you're gonna keep ordering more. With the Spino, you got the feathers, fun stuff.
Okay, there's listing things you like about Jurassic Park 3. We should get on to important things like your favorite segment of the week. The Comicsology. Top 10, everyone!
If I brought up feathered dinosaurs, he'd forget, but I underestimated Pete.
That was a miscalculation on your part.
A massive miscalculation.
So yes, we're looking at the current ranking on Comicsology at the time of recording. They're split up into days, so we'll look at Tuesday, which is DC books, and then Wednesday for the rest of the industry, just see how things are cooking there. So Matt, you got a guess for Tuesday's books?
I'm going to guess Night Terrors 3.
Nope.
What? Please tell me it's Superman Annual.
It is the Superman Annual.
Yes. I went for Event first because I just thought maybe people are still curious. We're over halfway there.
We're living on a prayer.
Let's go. Yeah, on a prayer that Night Terrors is done. Oh man, hey, I'm really good. Not to have too many thoughts of the Superman Annual. I'm glad that book was number 1.
Okay. Number 2 was Night Terrors issue 3. Number 3 was World's Finest Teen Titans. So that beat all of the Night Terrors tie-ins. Number 4 was Night Terrors Green Lantern. Number 5 was Night Terrors Shazam. Number 6 was Night Terrors Robin. Number 7 was Danger Street. Number 8 is Night Terrors Zatanna. Number 9 is Wildcats. And number 10 is Night Terrors The Flash. Interesting that Night Terrors The Flash came under Zatanna. You would think just the Flash, because Green Lantern's first issue was not good, but it did well purely, in the context of this list, it did well purely because it's called Green Lantern. I'd expect the Flash would be up next to that, but
but I feel like it's the Jeremy Adams people still, because it's still the same writer.
Just name recognition. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, is the Night Terrors Flash stuff written by the team that's taking over?
No, it's a random.
So that could just be it. I know I skipped Night Terrors Green Lantern this week after picking up the first issue physical, but I was like, nah. Even my shop was like, "You sure? You talk about Jeremy Adams a lot," and I was like, "Yeah, no, that first tie-in was a bore of a read." So.
Oh yeah, I mean you missed that week last month, but me and Connor eviscerated it.
Yeah, so. Props to him for trying, though. I give the man credit for trying to do his best with a tie into an event that comes 2 issues into his run.
Yeah, so, and it's not the only book to suffer that. I mean, Shazam was the same thing. That was like 2 or 3 issues in, and then boom, here's a
so it was curious that the first 4 also lined up with the Comic Geeks.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, as you were going, I was like, oh man. And then Robin was number 5, and I knew it couldn't be true. So And Danger Street having a good showing still, so, 7, that seems to be about where King's stuff like that slots in.
It's a more prestige book, but I think they don't have to sell it as well because they know they're going to be selling the hardcover on the shelf for years, basically. And they get awards. We were talking just a few weeks ago about the Eisners, and Human Target was picking up a bunch of awards, so I think they're quite happy with that stuff. Looking at Wednesday's books, you got a guess for number 1 from Wednesday?
I clicked the wrong thing and it gave me everything but Marvel, so let's go.
You might need the Marvel books, I'll just say that.
Yeah. You said I do need them?
I said you might.
Yeah. My cheat code, I don't see it operating. Oh, there. I'm just going to go with Immortal X-Men.
That is incorrect.
Oh. Is there a tie-in that I missed? Went down, nope. Hold on, I'm looking. There it is. It's Children of the Vault.
It is Children of the Vault, yes. That is...
There was no X branding on there until I looked at the artwork. So,
yes.
There was a big X in the corner, but nothing on the titles. So, dang.
Yeah, number 2 is Immortal X-Men. Number 3 is Amazing Spider-Man. Number 4 is Avengers. Number 5 is Ghost Rider Wolverine. Number 6 is Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 7 is Spider-Man Annual 2022. Number 8 is Miles Morales Spider-Man. Number 9 is Star Wars. And number 10, our only non-Marvel book in the top 10, is House of Slaughter issue 16, which is by James Tynion. So,
nice.
Not bad. So, yeah, very Marvel heavy top 10 for Wednesday this week. But fair enough, I suppose. Just looking down to see if there's anything interesting jumping out. Nothing interesting, but you know how we talk about how 90s comics were over-sexualized and stuff? There's a comic here called Gun Honey issue 2, which is really sticking out as an egregious example of sexualization of comic books.
Yeah, the Heat... I have it listed as Heat Seeker, a Gun Honey series. So, yeah, are you talking about the cover with the black box on it?
There's a black banner at the top. I don't know if it says a box, but
man, there's a black box, but it looks like it's covering up her rear end on the cover. So...
Oh no, there's no black box on Amazon. It's just her ass. It's her ass and a thong.
Okay, so here there's a black box on League of Comic Geeks.
They've censored it on League of Comic Geeks. That's how shameful it is.
So
we got ass, we got side boob, we have the pose of like the ass pointing at the camera, but she's turning around to look at us.
That is terrible posture for this poor woman.
Yes. They
did her wrong.
Oh, her back is going to be a nightmare by the time she's 30, but judging from this pose, it's just that classic, like, no woman's body is this shape kind of figure. I just wanted to shame that a little bit.
Just a tad.
Yeah. So there you go. There's the ComiXology top 10 for the week. Yeah, and the only news I had was that Wonder Woman movie retraction thing, so not much there to say either, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just went looking through too while we were going through that, and there's not a lot. That's not opinion. There's no like news. It's just a lot of
Which it's not surprising. We're only a few weeks removed from Comic-Con. There were solicits right after that. There's not really room for a bunch of announcements as of yet. I'm sure in the coming weeks, maybe solicits for November next. Maybe we'll get something juicy. I don't know.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's just get into it then. Night Terrors issue 3. Joshua Williamson writing with Caspar, Wijngaard, Stefano, Nesi, and Giuseppe Camuncoli on the art. So we're still rocking multiple artists, 3 of them in this case. It's still an issue, like the previous issues have been. It's it's all over the place. It's back and forth. There's very little consistency, unfortunately. I won't say too much about it again because we've just said the same things as we did the last couple of times. So
I will say that I prefer that the art didn't do that weird black and red thing at the end of the last issue. I'm glad we kind of got a good peek at these Sleepless Nights because I hadn't read Zatanna yet before I had read this. So I went back and read the first issue of Zatanna to prep for 2, and I'd seen that they had properly kind of been introduced to kind of get what they look like. So here, seeing them actually have those same forms and getting a beat on the art was a nice change. But I'm going to be honest, I read this first this week, and it did not make that big of an impression. I remember Damian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Deadman piloting Batman and stuff. But for the most of it, I don't remember a lot. So yeah, it's not a good sign.
Honestly, yeah, it's a pretty forgettable issue in a lot of ways. Like, some pages have nice art, like, but not all of them. Robin showing up and being awake kind of confirms from the end of Batman that, okay, so Robin is awake in the real world. Obviously, I assume Night Terror's Robin sort of told some of that story, but we never read it.
I'm not sure, did, because the Night Terror's Robin I read was just Tim and Jason.
Oh, really?
There was no Damian. The only time I remember seeing Damian was in the back of Batman, and then in the Free Comic Book Day stuff.
It must have just been the Free Comic Book Day thing then. Yeah. Which, to be fair, the editor's note does point to that as opposed to anything else in the book. Yeah, Robin shows up and kind of helps save Sandman and Deadman Batman. And they rush off. Damian knows that Deadman's in there. Well, he knows that someone's possessing Batman. He knows it's not his dad.
Yeah.
And Deadman comes out. But the big thing is that once again we get some flashbacks. You know, Deadman sort of reaches out to Insomnia's mind. Last time we got the whole Lazarus Rain stuff and kind of some of who he was, the context. This time we get that he's in like group therapy, talking about what, you know, why he's there, and effectively he blames the Justice League for something. So this is a bit of a mystery. We don't know what the Justice League did, or you know, presumably there was a big fight, the Justice League, and maybe there was some collateral damage that led to something that affected this guy. Fair enough. But when someone suggests that one day he'll forgive the Justice League, he goes absolutely psychotic and starts stabbing people and cutting off his eyelids.
Yeah, which that never read the eyelid look, which makes a lot of sense. He's called Insomnia, right? I never got the minus eyelid. I just thought he was wide awake, you know? So that was a nice little horror touch here, you know, him cutting off his eyelids.
I'll be honest, the tone of this kind of caught me by surprise. I like horror, as you know, Matt.
Yes.
But I feel like this feels a little try-hard to me to make us like think he's a scary, dangerous villain. And I don't know, I wasn't feeling it.
It's not the Michael Myers, you know, evil exists and is always lurking in the shadows. It's just, you know, dude goes nuts and starts stabby everybody. Which, yeah, isn't really horrific. Like, yeah, it's not good, but it's kind of my problem with some modern horror where it's too much. Right? Like, there's no tension.
It's not even that it's too much. I don't really have a problem with what he ultimately does. The problem is that there's no build-up to it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no tension, there's no, like, big build-up to the release. You know, you if you do something this horrific, you want to have it slowly build to it. Even if it is just in the one scene, you can do it in one scene, but you have to give it time to breathe. You have to give the signs that he's going to snap or the hints that maybe something's bubbling so that when he does erupt, it feels like it's, you know, a payoff.
Because at the beginning, it just reads like he's in a therapy. It doesn't not like he's been that troubled by whatever happened with the Justice League.
Yeah, he's talking very normal, and then just all of a sudden he flips like it's nothing, and it just it came off just like just very abrupt to me.
And what I mean by too much is it's all gas, no brakes, right? Like you're talking about that it needs that tension, it needs that build for everything. He just snaps and decides to start going on a stabbing spree.
And honestly, you know? my big disappointment of this issue, which is that Deadman and Damian go into...
Oh, that's right. The dreamscape, the limbo.
Yeah, it's not the dreamscape. It's like in between. It's between it's between the waking world and the dream world. There's something in between. And honestly, this is the moment like I lost all interest in this story.
I forgot about it, but I do want to say... Once I'll let you get through because I'm trying to work a color commentary play-by-play thing with you where I can just add color. So I'll let you do the play-by-play on it real quick, and then I'll give you my thought on it.
369 episodes in, Matt's thinking, you know what, I'm going to change our style. I'm going to try something new.
Yeah, well, it's come from watching a lot of wrestling and hearing how Riccaboni and Nigel McGuinness are, right? So, you know, there's the two-man booth, and it works out well.
Yeah, so. I Connor was a spare wheel, I agree. So they have this plan. Sandman, they realize that if the Nightmare Stone's not in the dream world, then maybe it was hidden in between the dream world and the waking world, and we get this limbo in between place. So Sandman sends them in there, and he has to hold off the Nightmare warrior dudes, whatever they're called, the Sleepless Knights.
Yep, Sleepless Knights.
And these two go into this like in between world, and there's the House of Horrors, blah 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 blah. I think instantly I just kind of felt like, this is all the forces again to me from Williamson. It's like,
you took what I was going to say away. Damn it. That was my color commentary. This is the forces again, and it's done even more haphazardly.
It's adding more layers onto mythology that's already got enough, right? There's already enough here to this, but you've added in like another category in between just for the sake of having an answer to this event, and it's just it's not, you just made up a new thing, and it's not satisfying.
Well, also, like, when I consider when we had heard that Dr. Destiny had hid it in the nightmares of a hero, right? Like, I knew Deadman was central, but I didn't think, because Deadman's not really a hero. He's a ghost, right? So, just I understand dream logic and all this other stuff. And it not being in the nightmare or anything, these are just like, it was red herring on top of a red herring that ultimately didn't do anything for the story. You know what I mean?
Because I think the core idea, and I liked the core idea when it was first proposed, which is the villain, that's not as bad as this villain, hid the Nightmare Stone in one of the heroes' nightmares. And my assumption from that was, that's kind of a cool idea because it's like a really interesting place to hide something. But my assumption from a storytelling perspective is that this would lead to like, okay, which hero has a nightmare that you would hide this in? And presumably the discovering that nightmare would be like revealing something about that character. Because I don't know, pick anyone, pick Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah.
Let's say it was something so horrific in there that a fear we didn't understand she had, or we didn't understand the extremity of that fear. Maybe it reveals something that was maybe going to pivot into like what her new run is going to be about. Maybe Tom King had input or something. Like, just, I assumed it was going to reveal something about a character, and instead it's just, no, here's just another fantastical idea of this third, like, and we have so many, like, how many like astral planes and stuff do we have in DC now? Now we have like the waking world, the dreaming world, the limbo in between, but then you've got the living world, you've got the afterlife, you've got the dark multiverse, and then that's before we even get to multiverse shit. We've got dark multiverse, and we've got the underverse, the omniverse. So
when they started talking about the limbo and it's not the dreamscape, I really like, I don't know what the deals are with the Neil Gaiman characters, right? With the endless and all of that. I really thought we were gonna get like Dream popping up in here, right? To kind of give the assist, because he's in between, and this was a big enough of an event in story for Dream to do something with, right?
Yeah.
Like,
also, just on that, we should acknowledge there's a chance, because neither of us are that well versed in Sandman, that the Neil Gaiman Sandman,
right?
Or Gaiman, I'm pretty sure it's Gaiman. Anyway, that
maybe
this limbo is a concept that actually comes from that. Maybe this is not Williamson's creation, but in this comic, it felt like made up. It felt like a new thing in this comic.
Right, but I just felt like it felt like a space that the Endless would occupy, the space between spaces and stuff. And just when we got to the House of Horrors, which I loved in Batman versus Robin, when Waid played with the House of Secrets, right? And what was the other house? The House of Mysteries. Like, I like those as a concept in a pulpy style story. When we got to the House of Horrors, I kind of groaned, because I was like, okay, this is a hat on a hat at this point. So we're in the limbo in between space, but we're also at the House of Horrors. But the House of Horrors exists outside of nightmares. So it's like what Pete was saying. It's how many different planes exist now. There's just it's a lot.
Yeah, if it hell, there's a comic out this week called The Spirit World, which is separate from like the afterlife that Wonder Woman was in just like a year ago. It's like there's so many things.
Even as a continuity nerd, this is where I start to see where people are just like, just read comics, don't worry about continuity. Just don't worry about it. I get it, but I do like when there's an interconnectivity between my favorite universe, right? But when trying to categorize this all in the filing cabinet in my brain, it's a lot, man.
It's just too much shit, and but much like the other forces in the Flash, where it's like the Still Force, the Strength Force, the whatever Force, the Sage Force, whatever all those other ones were. That's just felt like that to me, where it's like, here's another layer we didn't consider, where something else could be, and I'm like, this is like, this is just so out of left field that there's nothing satisfying because it wasn't set up earlier to me, you know. Whereas if we had found, because either this would have been about finding the right hero if we were indeed trying to find the Nightmare Stone, or part of me thought, oh no, this is going to be a fight that takes place with all the heroes who are still awake, whilst most of the important ones are asleep, and that would be interesting because it'd be like a weird, I guess it's kind of like the 1 minute war with the speedsters, but kind of different. You know, everyone else is asleep, so it's just the robots and Zatanna and Deadman and Sandman and whoever else is there to actually fight the battle.
Zombie Sandman.
Right? And that's a cool concept because it's kind of interesting that these C-listers and whatnot get a chance to like take the spotlight. That could be all very fun. And instead, we have this.
And just the way that they get the Nightmare Stone out of Deadman, it's very Saw, you know. And I'm not a fan of those movies.
Explain that. Like, we've not even mentioned that they find another Deadman.
So it's in Deadman's nightmares or his mental state or whatever, and he mentions, which I did like this little story point, is that when Deadman goes into the House of Horrors, he finds his body from when he was like an acrobat lying on the ground, and Deadman adds some commentary that people don't realize I was still alive when I hit the ground. The shots didn't kill me instantly, and the fall didn't kill me. So I was agonizing for minutes. And I was like, okay, that's super dark and nightmare-y, right? So then he has to plunge his hand into his dying body to pull out the Nightmare Stone, which, again, doesn't go with the story, at least to me, of us being told that it was in his nightmares.
Well, right? no, but it's not in his nightmares. That's the important thing to discern with this.
Right.
Is that we're in Limbo and they go into the House of Horror, and this, so he just basically gets it from the House of Horror, but the House of Horror like effectively creates like a dark moment from his past for him to actually live through. So it kind of creates a nightmare, but this isn't inside nightmare realm. This isn't inside, like, it wasn't hidden in Dead Man's nightmare. It was hidden in Limbo, and then the House of Horror in Limbo created a nightmare in the moment for him to like suffer through. Which, if this sounds confusing and a bunch of bullshit, it's because it is confusing and is a bunch of bullshit.
Right. Which, again, it could have just said that the House of Horrors gave Deadman a nightmare, and Deadman say, like, all it would take is a simple setup in an early issue where Deadman's like, I miss dreaming, right? Because he's dead. He doesn't dream, right? So therefore, it couldn't be, you know, him, and that would be the red herring. So then when you get there and the House of Horrors creates this nightmare scenario, his last agonizing moment on Earth, right? And that's where it's hidden. That's something I could get behind. But that's not. In fact, you just said something that's even more interesting. What if it wasn't Dead Man's nightmares, and the reason why it was so well hidden is because he doesn't dream anymore, right? It was hidden in Dead Man's nightmare, but he doesn't dream, so you can't get to them, and the only way to get to them is through something, you know, other avenue, right? It gives you a reason to get the convolutedness, right?
I just. Like, this entire issue really is about getting the heroes that are awake, getting to the Nightmare Stone before the villain. And the ending is, you know, Deadman, Batman holding it in his hand saying, we've got the Nightmare Stone. But he's also maybe slightly possessed, because then he says, my dreams will then come true. He looks like he's maybe, I don't know, he's being affected by the energy of the Nightmare Stone.
Yeah, he's going to have to fight it off, you know, get Nanda Parbat involved. But all that mystical energies.
Like, part of me feels like this is too condensed into too few issues, because there should be more of an actual interesting story of getting to the artifact. This, like, after all these issues in the past 5 or 6 weeks of Insomnia looking for this goddamn Nightmare Stone, this felt so absurdly easy to just go and get it that it just feels so anticlimactic.
Yeah. Also, the stuff with Wesley Dodds and his science and the gas stuff, I did kind of like, because it gave us a reason for Dodds to be there beyond having, zombie Sandman running around. To put them into that state that's not sleeping nor dreaming.
Also, you've got an entire world where everyone is asleep, barring a few select people, right? Why not use that world? Why not use the fact that you can literally walk in anywhere like it's a post-apocalypse and use anything because no one's there to stop you? Like, what if the heroes actually used that in a plan to try and stop the villains? Because, okay, well, we can... we're not Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, but hey, we can walk into this nuclear power plant and do something with that. I'm not suggesting that's what they should use. I'm just giving an example of, like, this is one of the many, many things they could just go in and utilize if they needed to. Yeah. So why not use the fact that you've got this interesting world that's now set up because everyone's asleep? And instead of exploring a sleeping world, which sounds kind of eerie and interesting, we're doing, let's go into Limbo with magic and get the MacGuffin. I'm just like, this has went so far off the deep end from anything I wanted from it.
Yeah, true. Well, then that was the mistake, is that we wanted more from it, and it just really starting to feel like a holdover for 2 months while they get things in order, Yeah,
I don't know. I really don't. But anyway... art's all over the place because we get multiple artists. If you like the art on one page, there's a good chance you won't like it on another. I will say, I do like the intro to this issue and the last issue with Deadman talking as if he's like a presenter. Like last time it was a TV presenter, this time he was on a stage. I kind of like the stylistic touch of that, but I mean, obviously it's not enough to save the issue in any way, shape, or form. So, alright, what are you rating Night Terrors 3?
I'm giving this a 5.
I'm going a 4.
There you go.
It sucks. I don't recommend it. Right. Where are we next? We got Night Terrors Shazam issue 2, Mark Waid writing and Roger Cruz on the art. So, this, I think the art in this is pretty nice. I think Mark Waid has done a better job at writing these tie-ins than just about anyone else. Unfortunately, by the end, it still falls victim to just being a tie-in to an event that we don't like.
It has a formula. A lot of it boils down to, Mary, teach them the magic word, and then move on. Yeah, I wish we had spent more time with Mary going through, her own fears, being, the older sister to Billy and the family. Yeah, this is the other problem with all these 2-issue tie-ins, is that even if a writer does come up with a good story, they've only got 2 issues to tell it in. So I appreciate the intent here of Mary realizing she does have the power to stay Shazam, and then she flies through the dreams of all of her family members to make sure they're okay, and effectively, so she goes to Darla first, right? And I like that, and I think the voice here for Mary is great, saying, I'll go to Darla first. Darla's always first because she's the baby, she's the kid, right? She's the little,
yeah. And saying, okay, you've got this fear of all these giants which represent grown-ups. Hey, here's the power of Shazam, and gives her the power. Same with Eugene, same with Pedro, so on and so forth. Everyone but Billy, because Billy's not there. And
I did get a laugh out of Freddy because his nightmare was just this wacky. His head's bigger or smaller.
It was smaller, yeah. It looked really small.
And stuff. And Mary just looks and goes, Freddy knows what to do, right? Which I did get a kick out of that.
Yeah, Pedro just needs clothes on. He's having the classic I'm naked talking to class stream. And so the insomnia version of Billy is chasing her throughout these dreams and eventually catches up to her. They have this fight. And there's a great 2-page spread where he punches her through what looks like multiple dreams. And it's all these strips of color. It's really nice. So the craft is really good, and then there's this great sequence after that where he's holding her in his hands, and it's like he's getting bigger, but the panel stays focused on Mary, and you just see like he gets big and goes out of frame to the point where he's just like a fist coming in from the side.
Yeah,
and that's
it's
really
like
the sequential art's really good in that sense.
Yeah, no, Roger Cruz is really good, and it's like he's overshadowing her, right?
Yeah,
like she's very much in Billy's shadow, no matter what she does, no matter how good she is, and that's the commentary that I really dig from Waid.
Yeah, and that's her fear. And then the surprise ending is that the rest of the family she's all went to help have all figured out how to travel the dreams as well and come to help her. Again, how does this link up with the logic over all of these dreams and who's dreaming together and how can you move just from one to the other? Don't ask. It's all a bit fuzzy. Just go with it.
Well, and then just like the parents, you would think like, oh, they don't know about us having the power of Shazam, so I can't teach them the magic word. Well, if it's a dream logic, why not? They would just have a dream.
To be fair, I think these parents do know, though, right? They know.
I thought so, but they don't have the power of Shazam. But like, it's a dream. Why can't they? You know what I mean? Why can't they be the mom and dad Shazam, right? Like, that was just a little.
I kind of got that, and it was kind of nice that it was like, no, they're there for each other, so they'll fight side by side with swords, kind of thing, in their pirate dream. That was all right to me. I don't like the ending too much though, where Mary wakes up and then she sees Insomnia outside the window and she's like, holy shit, is he real or am I still dreaming? Like, that ending just kind of felt like and there's a few of these tie-ins that end this way this week, where it's like to be continued in Night Terror's Night's End, which is like the one shot coming later in the month,
the Omega,
and I just kind of felt like like I don't know, like how, like I felt like you could have just ended your story, but of course they want everyone to like be invested in the main thing, so I think the first issue was better because it was more focused on Mary. I like the overall ideas of this one, the sentiment behind it, but it still kind of falls victim to one, having to squeeze it all into an issue, and two, still having to like do the cliffhanger at the end for the event, when really like this could have just been self-contained,
Yeah, I agree. I just, anytime Mary can get the spotlight, I'm there for it. And I really like Waid's voice from her because it does fall in line with the Josie Campbell Mary that we got shortly before this.
I mean, I said last month that I was glad that he picked a different character to follow because it made it feel more worthwhile. And I still feel that way, but I do think that I think Part 2 suffered more from being part of the event than Part 1 did, to me. For sure.
Yeah, and it was partially that formula, too, for just flying through and waking them up. And, I would have liked a little bit more just about Mary and Billy and, her being the older sister, but, Billy's the main focus of everything and all of that. I thought that stuff really hit.
It does, give me the confidence that Mark's not going to forget about Mary and the main run. There's going to be inclusion for everyone, and that's good. Yeah. But... and the art is, like Roger Cruz, I don't necessarily always love his more cartoony faces. I mean, I like cartoony faces from different artists. His don't always completely work for me, but his layouts and his kind of clean line work do look good. And like, there's some good double page spreads, there's some good layouts, and some inventive stuff in here. So
we read Cruz of Flash, right? He was one of Adams's go-to guys.
He was in Flash, and I think he also popped up in like some Supergirl stuff at one point. And I feel like he was in something. He bounces around a lot of DC stuff recently. He's one of their like go-to sort of secondary artists, I'd say, right now.
And so it's very consistent all throughout, and like you were saying, his layouts are really, really fun. The stuff with the dreams, we get some laughs out of it, which is nice in a horror, comedy popping up in horror is always a relief. So, but yeah, much. I'm sad that we don't get anything else from the Shazam family because I'm not reading Black Adam, right? Out of this, like I feel like some of these characters we could have gotten versus some of the other tie-ins, right? Like, I do want to know what Billy's up to right now. Why wasn't he the focus here? So.
We'll see. I mean, he's the main character in the ongoing book. You'll have him next month. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I know, but it was just like I'm glad that we got to be with Mary, but like, where was Billy in all of this? He is Earth's mightiest mortal, So that's really just my problems with this book come down to nitpicks.
He's away for the weekend. Like I don't know. Yeah. It comes down to that. He wanted to focus on Mary, so it's just Billy's away. Yeah, that's it. All right, what you rating?
I'm gonna give this a 7.
6.5 for me.
Okay.
I think it's just a little bit weaker on that first one. I appreciate it more than some of the tie-ins, but it suffers from just being a tie-in to an event, basically.
Yeah.
So that is that. Shazam, Zatanna issue 2. Dennis Culver writing with what?
You want to try that again?
Oh,
You
Night
said
Terrors.
There you go.
Shazam Zatanna just sounds funny to say, okay?
It does. If you people know more than me, let me know if there's ever been a Shazam Zatanna story from back in the day. That's something I'd like to read.
Yeah, Night Terrors Zatanna, issue 2, Dennis Culver with David Baldeón on the art. So this was notable last time because it was one of the few where the main character was awake. So that was like, okay, and instantly there's something more interesting going on here. Having Robot Man be kind of the co-lead, especially coming from the writer of the current Doom Patrol book, felt like, okay, you know, I'm liking these voices. And they are, and I didn't know the artist that well going into this. I actually really like the art from these 2 issues of Zatanna. I will say, though, as much as I think this was a very easy read, and there's some really nice art in here, and I do like Culver's voice for Zatanna, and especially Robot Man, this whole her being chased by a demonic Robot Man who's been turned into a sleep demon by the Sleepless Nights, it's basically all just like, it's not technically a dream, it's the maze underneath the Hall of Justice, but it might as well be a dream because she's just running around a maze. So I felt disappointed by the fact that it just felt like it could have been a nightmare. Just despite the fact that it's technically not, it still plays out like one. You know, when Zatanna shows up in zombie form to mock her and talk down to her, it's still just zombie. It's still, it's still just nightmare stuff. Even if she's not asleep, it's still nightmare stuff. So sadly, I have to be kind of harsh on this one as well, despite the fact that once again, like, the art's even better in this than it was in the Mary Marvel book. I do actually think the art here is really good, and I hope to see this artist on more DC books. So that's really cool stuff. But it is just kind of fluff. It's just fluff running and fighting, and ultimately Zatanna is able to, use a bit of magic to trick the villain and bring Robot Man back, and then they work side by side, and they go off together. They fist pump, and Robot Man says, Zatanna says, yes, let's go off and beat up bad guys hex and violence style, which, very good. So it's feeling good enough. The art is really nice, but I really can't say that much of substance really happened or recommend it as a standalone 2-parter, because it is just kind of fitting in. Nothing of substance really happens by the end, and you could say, well, Zatanna is been told by her evil version of her dad that she's not worth it and she's a failure, blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, but all these Night Terrors tie-ins are doing the exact same thing, where their backstory parental figure or whoever it is telling them they're not worth anything. It's all the same shit. Nothing new is said, god damn it. So sadly, I also have to be kind of critical of this. I know, Matt, you didn't read this one.
No. I got about 3 pages in and then forgot to get back to it. I got to the transformed Robot Man, and I'm like, okay, it's time for bed, and then didn't have enough time today. So yeah, I will agree about the art. The art is really good because I did thumb through it before we started. So
it's funny because when I was talking about Roger Cruz's art in Shazam, I was saying that I don't like his cartoony faces. I would also describe this as cartoony faces, but I really like this cartoony face style. So it's hard to it's hard to describe why. There's a certain point with art where you're just kind of saying, I like this and I don't like this, and there's not really much beyond just a personal taste thing. But it works for me here much more. Honestly, this is a really short review because I really have very little to say about the bulk of what's going on in it. So I'll just give it a... I can't go up to the 7. I have to go 6.5 again. It's just I can't call either of them good and give them that 7 benchmark, because unfortunately they still just feel like tie-ins that don't really feel like they're important or really do much enough to recommend to anyone. So yeah, 6.5 is a bit highest I can possibly go for this as well, which is a shame, but it is what it is. So cool. Superman Annual 2023, Joshua Williamson and a lot of artists, which I'll tell you about in a minute when I'm looking at the credits page. There was too many to bother writing down in the timestamps. So do you know what, right? The Superman run from Williamson, which is only 5 or 6 issues so far, is it's been very up and down. There's things I've liked, there's things that I've really not liked, and that's kind of par for the course for Williamson for me at this point. But I will say, this annual came out at the perfect time when we're desperate for the regular books, that it was just nice to have. And let me make this clear, this is very much the next issue in the run, because there's no way this isn't in the trade between issues, whatever, and whatever.
5 and 6.
Yeah, 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Because this advances the story, it references everything that's going on, it probably has the biggest Marlin Moonlight bit that we've had so far, and it's going to be important going forward. So this is very much not skippable as an annual, which I prefer anyway. Like, even in a normal comics month, I would rather the annual just be an extra issue of the main book. But this month especially, when we've not had most of the main books, I especially appreciated that this was just the next issue of Superman.
Yeah, and I like that in an annual sense too. We get like a bunch of interconnected stories, right? So it's I had a misunderstanding reading what this was about, but in this issue, it's Lois acting as editor-in-chief, sending out the Daily Planet reporters to go cover different things that have occurred and are occurring in Metropolis. So kind of is revisiting some of the plot threads that we've seen, and I think it does it very effectively.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, you say, I mean, it is in connected stories, like you said, but it's not like in a gimmicky way. It's just, there's just, because there's more pages, there's more stories they can put in, there's more subplots that they can put in. And they do this thing early on where Lois is talking to all the writers at the Daily Planet, and we get this rundown of the ones that which are Cat, and they've recently, in recent years, they've made an effort for Trish, who's like the gossip columnist, to be like there. Steve's obviously a classic, but there's the other 4. The politics guy, Steve's sister. I assume she's not new, but I mean, I don't really think I've heard her be talked about much before. And then the crime writer, who's Erica. Like, there's a few extra ones. I'm like, okay, they're building a whole roster of writers, and the whole point of this is that they all pitch their stories that might make page 1. And Lois is like, this is the same shit you've all been writing about for ages. You know what? We're going to shake things up. And she basically hands them all. She flips all the assignments around. She makes Steve go talk to Livewire at the prison. She makes Kat go and do the ride along with the police. And makes, she does all this. She shuffles everyone up. Yep. And they're all freaked out about it.
All while in the background, Superman's fighting a mecha Toyman device.
Do you know what? This book, other than like mentioning that Superman's fighting Toyman somewhere in the city, the book does not focus on it so much that when it actually did cut to a page of Superman's perspective, like halfway or so through, it was kind of, I was like, wait, I didn't think we were going to do this. I thought this was going to be all these other characters' perspectives, and we were going to just avoid Superman for the issue. But we do get a little bit of him later on.
Yeah, but I do like that it is in the background. He's fighting this big, gigantic, Toyman robot. And, as Lois is trying to pull these other threads together. And I do like how she picks, she mixes it up in that way. Because it gave me a really good laugh when Lombard comes back from talking to Livewire.
She didn't know anything about sports, so I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's just like, God, Lombard's he's the best at being the worst,
By the way, just while I'm on this page, so the artists for this book are Mohamed Asrar, Edwin Gallman, Caitlin Yarsky, Max Rayner, and Jark Herbert. And to this credit, despite the fact that there's 5 artists, I'm not going to say that I didn't notice the changes, but I will say I don't think there was any great weak links. As opposed to Night Terrors 3, where I was actively disliking some pages, I think I liked pretty much all the art to some degree in this.
So yeah, I like that the different art styles too pop up into the story. So like when Jimmy goes to Supercore, right? That's one artist versus when what's one of the other plot lines? When Cat goes on the ride along. Those are 2 separate artists, and they keep it consistent throughout, right? So it creates this bigger sense, and that's where I was getting it with the interconnected stories, to where they're not interconnected to where we follow a thread from one to the other, but they are. This is what's going on at Metropolis all at the same time.
Yeah, and there's some back and forth in the writers, the pen, the writer's pen of the Daily Planet, the bill pen. That's the word I was looking for, bill pen. I was like pen, something pen. Yeah. And so you have all these things going on. you know, I don't know if I'm liking the comedy direction they've got Parasite going in. It's maybe because overall, before I go any further, I actually did mostly like this issue, and it made me feel a bit more positive about the run. But the two things that I don't like is that I don't like this whole Lex was kind of a hero in his early days, and this issue sort of dives into like exploring that, because Lois is like, how could we not know about this? We're going to look into this, right? So that's one of the plot lines. But the other thing that I don't know how I feel about is comedy Parasite who works at Supercorp.
It is a bit much. However, judging from the different versions of Rudy, the person he was before he was Parasite, this is kind of who he was before. So I can buy the idea that if he's not constantly hungry, he can be a functioning member of society. Does he need to be working at Supercorp? No. But, you know, I can look past it just a little bit. So it did give me quite the laugh, though, when Jimmy's like, Parasite's here, right? And, you know, Mercy is like, oh, no, you know, he's on work release. He has to go back every weekend.
Yeah. And it's funny because there's a whole little action scene here where they think parasites went bad, but it turns out it was one of the copies from the prior plot that's sort of on its own. And Parasite comes in and sort of says, I'll keep him effectively as a pet. And I kind of felt like this was just like padding for the page count. I'm like, I feel like seeing him in the business, the shirt and tie doing work, that could have just been the final point and ended the scene. But we had to have a little scare where, as he went bad. Well, it didn't really matter.
I also think it was Williamson reminding us that Mercy does have Lazarus Rain power still.
Oh, yeah, because she forms a cannon out of her arm,
Which I was like, are we going to forget about that? And no, because I do like, too, that Jimmy points out, like, we don't know anything about Mercy. We don't know what she did before she worked for Luthor. She still calls him Mr. Luthor, right? And, like, she was just willing to let Superman come in and run Supercorp. So I do like that Williamson is putting some seeds into what Mercy has going on.
Was it the Superman animated series? No, maybe it was the Justice League animated series where Mercy was a robot. There was definitely a version where she was an android.
Yeah, it was either Justice League Unlimited or Superman later seasons.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Lois is frustrated that she's back at the office. She doesn't really like being editor. So as soon as Steve suggests that she go and interview Livewire herself, she's like, yeah, good idea, Steve. Hold down the fort with those donuts. I'm going to go and talk to Livewire.
Gotcha, Chief. Like,
I will say I was surprised to get a reference to Bendis' run here.
Yeah.
With Red Cloud seeing Lois Lane at the prison and immediately being like, oh shit, I'm breaking out right now to try and kill her. And then Lois convinces him to let out Livewire, and Livewire fights on behalf of Lois because she wants to be interviewed. And also Livewire is kind of good now because she's dating Jimmy. There's a whole...
No. Banshee's dating Jimmy.
Oh, Banshee's dating Jimmy. You're right. Sorry.
But the thing with Livewire is I feel like Livewire just wants an audience.
I'm mixing up my...
Give it an audience...
Yeah, I'm mixing up my lady Superman villains here. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but I do like the idea that she just wants to be heard, and so if you let her just talk, she'll play ball, because that's what Lois promises.
It was in my head because there was a joke earlier on in the issue where it was Kat who was saying, "Oh, I could talk about Jimmy and his new girlfriend, but we could wait a few days and I could just talk about the breakup instead."
Yeah. Oh God, I can't. Williamson does have a pretty good voice for a lot of these Daily Planet writers, right? Like
he does.
That feels very spot on for Kat.
I think he's doing a good job with the person-to-person conversations and the voices. It's the greater plots that he sometimes is maybe going to fumble. So after that, we do cut to Superman, and I don't know which artist did this page, but they were going for Christopher Reeve, because I see Christopher Reeve, at least on that one panel.
I think that's because it's kind of the darker, more shadowy. I think that's Edwin Gallman, because I'm looking at covers as we talk, and looks like the style on the Edwin Gallman cover. Okay. So, it kind of reminded me of what's his name, Mike Perkins on the Lois book a little bit. No, just me.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, so Superman goes to find Toyman because he was fighting one of Toyman's big things in the city. But Toyman's all tied up and gagged, and he's like, "Wait, what's going on here?" It turns out the evil doctors that have been the main villains so far in this plot, Kraft and
Farm.
That was it. I was like, it's not Dr. Giggles. I want to say Giggles, but it's not Giggles. So that's like, okay, that's interesting. So they keep sort of setting up things for Superman to do without striking him yet. So that's like a thing that they've got going. Lois has got workers looking up all the old non-digitized records of anything written about Lex in the old days, because she wants to look into all this history. And Kat's on the ride along, and basically she's just kind of like, she's basically asking them about their love lives, because that's what she writes about.
She's kind of flirting with the other cop, and not really doing. I mean, what is she supposed to do on a ride along besides just observe what the police are doing, right? Like, write
about something else for a change, man. That's what she's about to do.
No, I know that, but like, I don't know what else Kat, So her flirting with the cop, I thought was pretty funny.
But there's a random robbery. Presumably they're taking advantage that Superman's busy with big toy man stuff, and they're in pursuit. But the Marilyn Moonlight character like comes in, and we get a big sequence with her making like guns out of light and like stopping these guys. And Kat like goes up and tries to get a quote. And there's an interesting little exchange here where she says, she asks, don't you want the city to know that you're there to make them feel safe? And she says, no, because Metropolis has never felt safe for me. So it's sort of hitting at maybe some of the characteristics and themes that we're going to be hitting at with that character. This is a black character, so it feels like we're going to be hitting at some of that stuff, which is good. So, and it's interesting to include Kat more in this side of the plot. Like Kat's the one who's like getting the scoop on her, because she's been this mysterious character we've seen like twice maybe up until now, and one of them was literally just here's a panel of her looking down at people. That was all it was. So that's curious to me, and she decides to stay in the ride along, so fair enough.
Also, we gonna talk about Marilyn Moonlight riding a ghost horse on top of the cop car. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, she had the ghost horse before, right?
Did she? This is the first time I remember seeing it.
I think she, in the first big appearance where she came in and saved the day, I think she did. I'm misremembering, but
I might be misremembering as well. But I thought the ghost horse was pretty rad.
It didn't strike me as new. Like when I saw her, I was like, that's her horse. I feel like I'd seen it. Maybe I'm wrong, but it felt natural.
Gotcha.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I thought it was a cool visual. Just it was running along the cop car, right?
Also, So the next scene, Superman comes to speak to Lois, and I would have been fine not seeing Superman until this scene, properly, because it's like we're following the writers of the planet rather than him. But it turns out the big like sort of toy that he was fighting in the city, it was actually being controlled by some kids at an arcade, because they didn't know they were controlling a robot. They just thought they were playing a video game. And I'm like, hey, that could be fun to like do more of that sort of thing with these villains if they're like unwittingly having people be like accomplices without realizing it.
You're right, and it kind of goes along with Toyman too, because the kids thought they were playing with the toy, and so it goes in, and it was kind of like Toyman never really succeeds in having the kids play with the toys, right? Because it always goes wrong. So it's almost like they're doing Toyman better than Toyman, and I don't think he'll take to that very kindly, when he does respond.
Yeah. So the two big things at the end of the book, which I think are, well, one's interesting. The first one, I'm not sure how I feel about yet, which is that Perry White was basically censoring any mention of Lex being a hero at the planet. That's why there's no record of it, which is a little bit silly to me, because it's not like there weren't other papers. There was other media besides the Daily Planet, so there'd still be a record of it.
There's also the rival Daily Star. Superman's worked for both. So, and I don't... What the type of person Perry White is, if Williamson goes and that he had this hidden because of X, Y, and Z, I just don't feel like the Perry White that I know, right?
But that's the point, is that like why did he do this, right? You assume that there's going to be an interesting reason why he was doing this for Lex. If it was for Lex, even maybe it was for someone else. I don't know.
But yeah, I just feel like we've had stories where the story is Perry's journalistic integrity is so strong that he doesn't shake whatsoever.
That's why this is supposed to be shocking. I guess the concern comes from the fact that Williamson often fumbles these things. He sets something up and then we don't like what it does to the character. So I'm a little worried that he's going to do something that doesn't feel right for Perry, I guess.
Because I prefer the threat of it never happening, right? or not that it was Perry hiding it, but it was something bigger than the newspapers that were able to get everything pulled, right? So that it technically Lex as a hero never happened. I still don't want to believe it happened because I don't like that thread, like at all. But yeah.
I think there's possibilities with it. I don't know if I trust Williamson to be the one to like have them work, So the other big thing though is that the villains farm in Craft have got Lobo, right? And they've made a special syringe to take some of his blood, and they're talking about his blood and all the rest of it, and they're wondering if other Sarsnians have the same regenerative qualities. And Lobo's all like, I'm one of a kind. Well, except that stupid daughter I've got. But other than that, I'm one of a kind.
Good for nothing.
Yeah. And then we cut to like a bunch of Lobos all fighting, and you're like, what's this? What's going on? And I was genuinely not sure. And the reveal is that Brainiac's got a city from Zarnia, and he's going to unleash them at full size to do something to Earth. Like he wants.
You know what?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So he's just what he says here. So for the first time ever, he will not be alone in the universe, which makes me think Brainiac thinks there's another of his kind that unleashing the Zarnians. Basically, he thinks Superman's adopted home holds the greatest secret in the universe, and he's going to use the Zarnians to help him get it. So it looks like we're going to have a bunch of Lobos running around,
which I prefer to a bunch of Kryptonians, right?
Well,
because Superman always being the last son, and then there's actually the secret colony of and it's not always Brainiac, right? It's Argo City or it's whatever. There's actually the secret colony of Kryptonians that show up and all this other stuff. So just the idea that there's more Lobos, but like, what if they're actually more docile than him? Right?
I mean, they don't look it in that 1-2 page spread, but
no, but it's like an ant farm. Maybe they just need space, right? But yeah, like I hope the twist is that they're not all like him, So
I mean,
we'll see.
I think this was an effective cliffhanger because it was a genuine surprise that it was a Brainiac thing. It was like, okay, where are we? What's going on? Oh, it's Brainiac's got this bottle. So we're getting Brainiac in the Superman run soon. My only hope is that we don't rush through the plot, because that's what happened with the Parasite story, and I thought it was a really cool thing that was set up, and then it was rushed and finished in the very next issue. And I hope that anything that's cool that's been set up is, one, gets the time to actually be fleshed out, but two, doesn't just have Williamson kind of like hand-waving things with making up more mythology to explain things. I really hope that's not what happens.
Yeah.
But, I mean, overall, I actually quite like this. I liked having the perspective of all the writers from the Daily Planet. I like Lois running the place. I even like the idea of her discovering some of Perry's secrets, because she's now editor. I'm just not necessarily excited about the potential of what Williamson will do with the idea that Perry was hiding something for Lex Luthor. That feels a bit murky, but yeah. And the art's generally quite good. It's surprisingly not messy for having 5 artists. I'll give it that much.
Yeah. You were saying at the beginning, it's nice that this book came out during a week with Night Terrors, just to remind us that there are books that aren't Night Terrors.
I certainly appreciate it a lot more, I think, getting it this week than I would if it was the 5th week of a regular month. I think this week I was just thankful to get the regular Superman story, despite the fact that I don't love everything in it. There was enough good stuff and enjoyable, like just getting to see these characters again. I was just glad it wasn't a nightmare. I'm just glad for that.
For sure. Also, I like that Williamson bringing back the thread of Cat in Toyman, because Toyman is responsible for the death of her son, which I'm always murky on that. I can't remember if he killed her son when he kidnapped him, or if it was just one of the toys or whatever. But still, Cat having that tie to Toyman, I think, is a pretty big deal. And I'm just trying to think of what Toyman's technology could draw the blood from Lobo. Like, just trying to think about that, how they were able to replicate it, use it. I kind of hit a wall, but I just went along with it. But it's good to see Toyman getting some more stuff on here that's not his reality hopping gun that we saw in the pages of Batman.
Yeah. All right, well, that's Superman Annual. Definitely an actual chapter of the overall story, so shouldn't be skipped if you're reading the Superman run.
Yeah.
What are you giving this book, Matt?
I'm going to give this an 8. Really, really solid.
Yeah, I think... Do you know what? I'm going to go 7.5 because I feel like I'm being kinder and feel really good about it because of it being this, like, you know, oasis in the desert. You know, it's this... we're on dry land and this is like a regular book, so I don't want to overshoot it, but I do like the perspective of all the writers, and I'm totally down for more Lois running the planet. I think that's quite interesting and exciting to see her sort of move out of her comfort zone, and her plan to deal with that is to make everyone else out of their comfort zone is quite interesting. So I hope there's more to come from that side of things. But yeah, so that's Superman Annual 2023. World's Finest Teen Titans Issue 2, Mark Waid writing with Emanuela Lupacchino on the art. So I really liked issue 1 of this. I was curious about what issue 2 was going to be. And I will say there's just a slight like nitpick I'm going to give it here, is that there is a little bit in the middle of this where they're in the House of Secrets or Mystery or whatever, and it turns into a bit of a nightmare scene, and I'm like, this is not the time to be doing a nightmare scene, okay?
Yeah, that's true. That's unfortunate timing for Waid and Lupacchino.
Yeah, it's just awkward timing, that's all it is.
Yeah.
The issue is very good. Let me make that clear. The issue is very, very good.
However, I much prefer the way they go about it in this issue than most things in Night Terrors.
Sure. Well, that's because we're still following several characters that are not in the nightmare scenario, and it's quite short, it's brief. It's it's like it works into the story, which has got a complete thing going on. So the story starts with Bumblebee and Bumblebee.
Donna.
No, I know Donna's. Yeah, they go to Donna's apartment, but it's Garth and Bumblebee. I'm just. What's Bumblebee's real name? What's her?
That's a good question.
You're supposed to know these things.
I don't know. This book has made me realize I don't know this era of Titans very well.
Okay.
My infatuation with the Titans comes with New Teen Titans. So I just know I can tell you that.
Okay, well, it's on page 2. Her name is Karen, Matt.
Karen. I knew it started with a K.
The level of research Matt was trying to put in there, but it's just on page 2 of the comic.
Yeah. Well, because I have my iPad, I need a new one. It takes a while to get a minute, and I have Spirit World open for when we discuss that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Anywho, so they're going to see Donna, and Malcolm's there. So this is where how Karen meets Malcolm, which if you know Titans lore, you know that they end up being a couple. So it's kind of like teasing that, and she's got a bit of flirtiness to her. And there's also like a little bit where he's like crashing on the couch, and he kind of says a wee good to Garth, just to kind of be like, yeah, I'm not trying to steal your girlfriend or anything. I'm just crashing on the couch because I need to sleep somewhere. But it's basically a little montage of just Donna loving being in the world. Like, she's just loving roller coasters and guitars and popcorn and a bunch of things.
Reading this and seeing Lupacchino's art, it did remind me of early Wonder Woman by Rucka.
Year 1, yeah.
Yep. So I really all like that. Also, did not realize Donna's origin of Wonder Woman finding her in Man's World, and because they couldn't locate her family, her taking her to Paradise Island or to Themyscira. I didn't realize that was what Donna's origin was. So Waid bringing them back in here, and that's why she has such a love for this, for her, place of origin, despite being an Amazon. I thought that was a nice little, character trait.
Yeah, they also establish here that Donna's got a secret identity, so that not anyone can just find her.
Yeah.
But she's pretty liberal about just revealing it to friends. So Malcolm already knows that she's a Titan, and then when they get like a call, she's like, "Oh, Titan business, we have to go, guys." Bumblebee's like, "Hey, you just kind of outed me as one of the Titans here."
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, I did." So yeah, I do like the kind of flightiness of Donna.
Yeah, so that's a bit of fun at the start, which I appreciate being there, because I love that there's character development in this, and we're building like all these friendships and stuff. I think Wade's done a really good job with this book, and we're only 2 issues in. But the main plot, once it gets going, is that this teenager ran away from school and went missing, and it seemed that she went into this creepy house, right? And the Titans are here to find her, and we find out that she actually developed telepathic powers, and she was hearing everyone's thoughts, and it got worse and worse, and she couldn't keep them out, and then she started projecting her own thoughts out into the world, so everyone was seeing her worst like fears and dreams and secrets, and she couldn't stand to be around anyone, so she ran away. So all a bunch of fun stuff. So 3 characters get sent in. Garth, Speedy, and Donna go in to try and find her in this house, and it's basically like this girl's powers are like forming all these nightmare scenarios for them, and they're having to fight through them. But you know, we do cut to the other outside world. Robin, Wally, and Bumblebee go to talk to the girl's friend, and she's like, "Hey, you know, this is what's going on with her. This is what happened." So it becomes this kind of sympathetic thing. I think the big thing here is that Garth opens up about his backstory and talks to her to try and relate to her and say, hey, I had a tough upbringing as well. I was born with purple eyes, which to like people, you know, in Atlantis was this evolutionary throwback, and I was sort of an outsider. I was called a monstrosity, and I was treated as this other, you know, the other, basically. So you know, it's this, and I was like, you know, I didn't know this about Garth. This is actually quite interesting to get some characterization for Aqualad.
Yeah, they left him on the reef. That's how Aquaman and Mera end up getting him. So he becomes his Robin, right? Is like they found this baby on the reef and they brought him in because they're not going to let that happen. Or someone else did. Maybe it got adjusted later. But traditional Silver Age origin for Garth is that.
Yeah.
And because of his purple eyes and being the outsider, I think he's more adept at Atlantean magic along those lines. So that's when he becomes Tempest. I think he's able to do all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think Waid probably knows that most modern readers don't know this backstory for him, and that's why it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like another retread like the pearls in the alleyway. It's like, no. This is actually a character who doesn't get a lot of time usually, so we're going to give him a little bit of a spotlight here.
And again, he works it into a way that's not just an info dump. It is him relating to the girl. Each of those fears, each of those nightmares are kind of a teenage fear of like rejection and you know, not feeling comfortable in their body. And,
they're kind of translated for each of the characters who are experiencing them, but they all kind of track back to like regular teenage fears. And
so it's that kind of fear of rejection is what Garth is not applying to. What's the word I'm looking for? That's what he's using as the bridge relating. Thank you. Is relating to her through.
Yeah. So Omen puts like a block in her mind to sort of restrain her telepathy. And like, hey, we're going to get you some help, someone who can specialize in this sort of thing. But notably, Donna's quite cold, and the impression I got from this is that Donna's upset that Garth never told her any of this, because they all hear it, I think, and I think she's feeling like he's not opened up to her. And if you go back to that sort of like double date they had at the start, effectively, where they were going and doing stuff, you know, Garth was kind of detached and Donna was the driving force behind everything. And then all of a sudden, and you can imagine that Donna does feel like an outsider, that she is like this, you know, she grew up in a place where she was from another world. She was from man's world. She probably feels kind of like betrayed almost that her boyfriend has not like told her all these similar feelings that he's had about where he grew up, how he was sort of left and was raised by someone else. Like, you know, like it's just a simple little moment where she doesn't say anything and she just goes, "I'm fine." And I think we all know, especially if you're a guy and you have a lady friend and you hear the words "I'm fine," you know. Well, you don't know exactly what you don't know exactly what it means, but you know it's trouble. you know it's trouble.
They're not indeed fine. There's something going on, and some people you can pick at and get through. Other people, when they say "I'm fine," you're just gonna make them more upset by digging, and it's very. Man, it's part of growing up is learning to navigating that, and even at my advanced age, I still haven't figured it completely out. So, you know, and especially so. Being a teenager, you know, poor Garth. He has no idea what to do.
Yeah, there is a mysterious figure watching them from the woods here towards the end. So we don't get to see who this is. We just see like a silhouette of someone watching. So that's setting up something. And then the final page, it kind of comes back to the theme of the first issue, which was Robin getting pissed that everyone's being so public and on social media about all their antics. And, you know, Robin's been trained by a Batman to, you know, have the secret identity, to not reveal things. And Wally and Roy are like, hey, there's a Titans Con in Metropolis. And so they're all excited, and Robin's like, oh, holy shit, F my life. Like, what is this?
This is what we should not be doing.
Yes.
100%. You guys are doing the opposite of what I'm telling you.
So, I really loved that the first issue set up that conflict that Robin's used to be more secretive about everything, and he's got a lot of Batman's even though he's very different from Batman, he's got a lot of his teachings ingrained in him.
Yeah, he hasn't learned yet to trust in his friends, right? Because these friends are still kind of new to him.
Yeah,
this isn't the new Teen Titans Robin with Wally and Starfire and Beast Boy that fully trusts in them who they are.
Yeah, that's a more mature Robin. But the first issue set up all these themes. I loved that about it, and it kind of made it probably stronger than any of the World's Finest book had been. I think instantly it was better than that. And I like the Batman Superman book a lot, but I think this already feels like it's doing more with its premise. And in this issue, opening up more about Garth, I feel like, okay, we're getting a lot of stuff here for these characters. And I'm looking forward to, seeing which character gets the spotlight next issue. Because it feels like, first issue was kind of Robin that it focused on. Everyone got a little bit, but it was mainly Robin's story. This issue, it's pivoted to Garth, got the big moments and the dramatic stuff. I suspect the next issue, maybe it'll be someone else. Speedy, Wally, Donna, whoever. So very good.
Very good. Yeah, I also like the dynamics that are coming up between Roy and Dick, because we all know that while they're friendly now, growing up they were kind of rivals, right? Because they're both very similar. They're both wards to billionaires and whatever. So the fact that they are still kind of butting heads in this issue, I like that continuing over, But yeah, and Lupacchino's art, I just, I'll always be a fan of. And here, the very, very clean lines, everything feels very classic-y, Silver agey at points, but not like Dan Moore's. There's a bit of a nuance difference to it. So, I'll never be upset at Lupacchino art.
Yeah, the art's very good. I do think once in a while there'll be a face that looks a bit flat. I think what's the guy with Lilith? What, Narc?
Narc. Yeah, that's not a Narc appearance. The Cave Boy.
He there's a couple of panels of him where his face does look a bit maybe too flat for my liking, but it's few and far between. The general aesthetic of Lupacchino art is very pleasing to the eye.
Yes.
So it does work for Silver Age because it is a very kind of clean style that feels old school in that sense. So all right, what are you giving World's Finest Teen Titans issue 2?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think. I'll agree with the 8.5 on this one. Yeah. I think that's fair. So, very, very good. I think I like the first issue a little bit more, but...
it's a solid read nonetheless. I'm glad, I'm glad Mark Waid came back to DC to tell these type of stories.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think we're really I almost felt like he had some growing pains coming back, and now we're really starting to bear fruit of him being back at DC. Between this and, Last Days of Luther from a week or two ago. All right, Spirit World issue 4, Alyssa Wong writing with Haining on the art. So you read this, Matt. Take it away.
Yeah, so we're continuing they're in the Spirit World, which is a realm of death, and they are getting attacked by these body horror-esque. They've been transformed by the people that were already in the spirit world. So they were like the neighbors of what's her name, of the grandma character, and so they don't want to fight them because they're the neighbors, but they keep advancing on them. So Xanthi ends up pulling out the last of their paper, and doesn't have any swords, but forms a bat with it. So they make sure that Constantine's not hurting them, but Cassandra gets pulled down, and while it grabs her, it puts her into this kind of the shadow realm, and she's able to pull free to let them know, don't let them grab onto you, because worse things will happen. Constantine goes to do an exorcism, being that he is an exorcist, and just completely blows apart this creature, going against Xanthi's desire. Bowen and who's the person that lived with Xanthi, the guy, and Popo, who's the grandma character. They're fighting with the fox guy, and he ends up just losing his mind and becoming this gigantic fox kaiju to fight, whatever's making this creature. And he kind of just goes off into the sunset, after saving everybody. But Xanthi's able to get more of that paper, like the offering paper, and they fully defeat the thing while pulling out her little sister, or their little sister, or like one of the neighbor kids. Xanthi's super upset because this expelled a lot of energy, and spirit world now is being kind of turned upside down. The creature, whoever's controlling the creature, takes Bowen, and not even Xanthi's sword, being plunged down, can stop. Popo takes the rest of them back to their house, and Xanthi wakes up from the nap, and they decide that they need to go to to face down this group of people in this jade tower that's off in the sunset. So Bowen's back, so Xanthi did save him, and he ends up getting possessed by whatever who's ever pulling all these strings. But I'm trying to look up the name of these guys. The Jade Court. So they want to go see the Jade Court. Popo tells them no. Xanthi says it's really their only option, and then Grandma gets completely filled with green energy and kind of puts down the hand and says, no, we're not going to the Jade Tower. It's too dangerous. They're too sadistic and cruel. And that's when Bowen gets possessed. They start heading down from the apartment on these steps when Xanthi gets attacked by Constantine. And she's like, hey, man, what's up with that? You can't be doing that here. And he goes, I didn't. My hands moved on their own. And then Cassandra turns to Xanthi and tells her to run. So they're no longer in control of their bodies either. And that's where the issue ends. So it's still an enjoyable read for this, little subset. It's still my least favorite just because it is so the manga-esque in the art and kind of the storytelling. There's a lot that goes on here. But I do like that the dude, so I looked up who he was. The guy that becomes the fox, he's like an Asian mythological character. He's like a guardian of the death realm and whatever. And so the fact that he was kind of shirking his responsibilities by taking this human form and running, the little side business that he was, this got him to turn back into his proper form. I'm sure we'll see him again. But yeah, the art's not bad. It's the breakdowns and everything. The action sequences are nice. It's just the faces are still part of taste, where it's very manga-esque, like I just said. But yeah, it's a fun concept, and I'm going to stick through it because I got through. Usually I'm used to Connor on this type of stuff because this thing is his jam. Mm-hmm. It's got the mythological, it's got the anime, manga influences and stuff. But yeah, so I'm going to rate this a 7.
All right. So Danger Street issue 8 is next. Tom King writing with Jorge Fornés on the art. Mm-hmm. And, there's barely don't need to introduce anything really here at this point. Just that we keep going. We keep going with the next parts. Last issue set up that it seemed like the Dingbats were in cahoots to try and break Starman, or try and break Warlord, out of prison. Well, I say prison. The jail cell at the police station. The
jail cell at the police station, yeah, because they have Starman, right?
Yeah. Lady Cop tried to see the Commodore, but was basically shooed away, but did run into Jack Ryder, which obviously that advances here. And was it Abdul is the other remaining Dream Team member who set a trap with the Outsiders for Manhunter, and that is also continued here. So a lot of things going. Lady Cop goes to dinner with Jack Ryder. She repeatedly says it's not a date. I think he's hoping it is.
He's hoping it is. This is not a date. This is a professional type thing. And then he proceeds to get completely sloshed, which I thought was hilarious.
Well, he tries to resist at first, but then she kind of talks him into it. Well, and I think that's intentional to make him talk. I think she's playing the game a little bit. But the Dingbats trick the cop Cooper by
poor Cooper.
Yeah. Starman makes a hole in one jail cell and gets one of the kids out, and then the cop runs to that cell on the other side of the building. If I remember correctly, there was a thing last issue where one of the kids like had a reason to like have to go near like somewhere, like, to make sure they were in a different part of the building. Like they said they had to be near something. I think that was something. But anyway, and then when the cop runs to that cell, Starman breaks a hole in the wall in the other cell, and they're all gone. And this is all just hilarious because then this sort of cop Cooper just starts yelling, effing dingbats. It's perfect.
And just the reveal of the holes in the side of the jails, too, is very good. But yeah, and them constantly talking about Cooper, like, hey Cooper, it's not your fault, man. You know, you're just doing your job. As he's running back and forth, and there's just so much condescension from these kids. Like, I fully, like, not that I didn't already love the dingbats, but this sequence in general really made me enjoy them.
Yeah, they're up to mischief. They've got a plan, and they've got more of a purpose now, which just makes it even more entertaining to watch. So then we go to Abdul, and him and the Outsiders have got Manhunter tied up, and they're telling him a story. And it turns out this is the origin, effectively, of what the Green Team and the Outsiders are. And he's talking about how they all went to school together, and there was these cracks in the playground. And they'd play a game where they'd have to only walk on the cracks, but only the cracks that had like some weeds or grass kind of coming up through, you know, just silly kid shit. But basically, whoever was able to pull it off that day, the winners would be referred to as the Green Team, and the losers would be the Outsiders. And it was all very innocent until a mysterious man showed up. And basically, when he found out about this game, how about today we make the game mean something? How about the winners will get something, and the losers will get a forfeit? They'll get a... So... It's very much the devil shows up and like offers a deal, but obviously these kids maybe didn't realize that that's what was happening. So that's set up here in this first early scene with them, as they're listening to the story, and then we also see the Commodore having trouble with his juice box. So poor codename Assassin, his next mission, should he choose to accept it, is to get the straw into the juice box.
You know, props to the art here, because I was getting frustrated on behalf of it, watching him constantly miss the juice box, and then Codename Assassin finally just going like, give it, and he does it. Like, pitch perfect storytelling here.
It's very layered, because you've got the comedy of the pacing of the panels with Manhunt, or not Manhunter, sorry, Codename Assassin trying to do this. But then you've also got the point of this scene, which is how little the Commodore is taking anything seriously. He's like, hey, you're going to go kill that Manhunter before he comes gets me, right? He's like, better not mess up. It's all very kind of nonchalant, but Codename Assassin looks at the diamond arm on his desk, this arm made of diamonds, and he's like, hey, I need to borrow this for the fight. And he's like, I sold my soul for that thing. He's like, yeah, but like if you die, then you die. So you know, so sure enough, he gives him the diamond arm, and we'll see what he does with that a little bit later. Then we go back to Warlord and Starman, and Starman gets woozy and falls, and Warlord's like, what's wrong with him? And it turns out he's been like this, and the kid said Starman didn't want us to tell you what's going on with him. So they put him in the little like trailer behind a little quad that they've got. And they're on their way to try and, you know, deal with whatever they're dealing with. There's a funny little exchange here where you know, they're saying, hey, get in the trailer, old man. And he just sort of stops and breathes and goes, I was the king of Scataris. And now I'm listening to these little shits. But he's into red grapes though, so it's not all bad news.
Okay, he goes, and I forget the grape kid. I forget which one of the dingbats he is, but he's like, I got some grapes. He's like, which ones? He goes, red. I don't like the purple because they're too squishy. And Warlord just gives him this look like, all right, you have a deal.
Yeah, red's
I'm in
good.
For red grapes. Yeah.
Red's good. Red's
really
perfect. And then we're back to Lady Cop and Jack Ryder. He starts drinking and he starts talking a little bit. He mentions the diamond arm in a later scene. But the big thing with her is she talks about how she's the survivor of a mass murder. Not a mass shooting, because it's not a gun, it's just a knife. Right. But basically when she was in college, like the dorm rooms were broken into, and everyone she knew there was killed, and she was hiding under the bed. And part of the reason why she doesn't really believe in asking Superman for help is because she whispered for Superman's help when hiding from this murderer. And he never came. God. Yeah,
that scene is very harrowing.
Yeah.
Like just how it pushes in on her face, how she's telling the story. Oh man, it was real heavy.
And it's her face under the bed in the flashback that's pushing in on, not her telling the story at the dinner table. It's really, really well done. And you're like, this would make you lose faith in Superman if he didn't show up to help you. And obviously, Ryder's like, he was probably fighting Darkseid on Apocalypse or something. You know, he was busy doing, end of the world stuff. And that makes complete sense, but that doesn't mean anything to her. She's like, I was scared. I was
scared, but it also made her who she is, and that she doesn't ask for help. It's made her self-sufficient.
Yeah, also, I love that she says, I used to, love Superman. I wanted to be Superman. I mean, not Superman, but, Lady Superman. I love that she phrased it that way, like Lady Cop. That was such a nice little touch in the writing.
Yep.
Good stuff. So this is how she convinces him to drink, is this basically this dark story is what makes him start taking swigs of booze.
He's like, so I wasn't gonna drink, but give me some of that now.
You've depressed me and made it awkward, so I'm going to do this. And then we go back to the story about the Green Team and the Outsiders and how this team formed. And we get this great 2-page spread of all the cracks on the playground, and it almost looks like it's making the shape of a person, almost. Just enough. And it's the girl who's doing it. She's the last one, and we get this great panel of her losing her balance and falling to the ground. And this mysterious figure.
I was gonna say earlier in the story too, Abdul had mentioned that she's usually on the Green Team, but for whatever reason that day, it wasn't her best day, and she ended up an outsider.
To use a very specific word, fate meant on that day she fell. And why I'm saying that is because this mysterious figure who's kept in silhouette the entire time so we can't see him, pulls out what looks like a Dr. Fate helmet from his bag and says, okay, it's, you all did very well. And they're yelling, all the kids are yelling at each other, and then the Commodore, or the kid who would become the Commodore, says, all right, give us our spoils, what do we get? And that's the last we see of it, but we can only assume that the Green Team get the riches and whatever else, and the Outsiders get turned into all these monsters, and that seems to be the origin. And maybe there'll be more to it later when we get more details, but that seems to be what it's implying here.
Yeah, and I want to... What's up with the Helm of Naboo? Who would do this, right? It's just one of those... There's a mystery on a mystery,
Yeah, no...
Because you would think that the Helm of Naboo would be locked down by the Justice Society, right? So, And we also haven't seen Metamorpho in a minute, right? So I wonder if this has ties to his... What's that guy's name? It's Metamorpho's girlfriend's dad.
Oh, Stag.
Stag. There we go. So I wonder if this has ties to Stag because of what this represents in the bigger scheme, because that Tom King likes to do that type of stuff.
I don't know.
He looks at this and sometimes riches and fortune and stuff just comes down to chance and fate and being at the right place at the right time, despite how good you are, right? And it really splits people into the haves and the have-nots. And he really drives his point home by making that the Outsiders, they become these creatures.
And it's nothing important decides this. It's this meaningless child's game that someone just decides has the stakes of your entire future on it.
Right. It's to me, it's who's the type of person that would orchestrate this, that's this cruel. And it also kind of ties to New Genesis, right? Because that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. It's
in New Genesis and with High Father and.
But also what ties it to, not only have you got these two sides of Apocalypse and New Genesis and the two sides, and that's the Green Team and the Outsiders. But that girl is usually on the Green Team, and by the sounds of it, Abdul was kind of seen as more of an outsider, and they are just on this day he happened to make it and she didn't, and all of a sudden it's a lot like
Mr. Miracle and Orion.
Yeah, just a lot like them. Who haven't really, I mean, obviously Orion's been here, but Mr. Miracle's not really come up in this book. But I can't help but notice that comparison as well as we're talking about this. I think that's super fascinating. That comparison to make that. So yeah, no, yeah. If this is an exploration of just like how someone goes down two different paths, and how someone's manipulated it here is quite interesting. And then you've also got the fact that this person uses the Fate helmet of doing this, and this story started with characters trying to use the Fate helmet to do something. So that also ties in. It's fascinating how much of this is sort of like starting to all feel like it's connected now that we're getting deep into it, and it's all
almost like
together.
It's the next, not the next. What was the word I'm looking for? It's the new cycle of it going through now, right? So the Helm of Fate, originally created the Green Team and the Outsiders, and now it's almost like it's causing a split now in the different factions of superheroes, like with the Dingbats, right? Because they lost one of their own. And how it transformed them just by being at the wrong place at the wrong time, right? Because of Warlord and Starman and Metamorpho trying to join the Justice League by summoning Darkseid, So
I think it's also doing a thing here where obviously a lot of this issue is building up to the fact that we're going to have the two knights fight, and the two knights being Codename Assassin and Manhunter. And you sort of get the idea that, okay, Codename Assassin goes and turns the diamond arm into a sword made of diamond, and that's going to be his weapon. And you also get the impression that Abdul and the Outsiders are basically enlisting Manhunter to go after Commodore, that he's the worst one. They're kind of saying, hey, I was really supposed to be with the Outsiders. I kind of lost my place and ended up with the wrong side. But here's a Warlord sword that we've got. You go and fight, and sure enough, they get a phone call, and it's like they basically set up a duel. Well, they're going to have a duel between the two knights, probably in the next issue. So that's super exciting. All this build up to it, and effectively you've got one representing the Commodore, and now Manhunters in an inadvertent way ended up representing maybe Abdul, and we'll see how that goes.
Well, and it's Abdul being the opportunist. He's just writing whatever is best for him,
and if we're continuing this theme of the two sides thing, having a character like Creeper, who's literally like a Jekyll and Hyde style character, doesn't seem like an accident either to me. You've got like the businessman, not the businessman, but
the reporter. He's
let me put it this way: he's the capitalist. He's the one who's trying to be successful, and then you've got just the Creeper, the monster side. Kind of thing. So he in and of himself kind of represents the sides of the Green Team and the Outsiders. He's literally both.
And that's why he's an ogre, right? That's why he's been classified that by the Helm of Fate that's telling the story.
I feel like there's a lot of parallels that are starting to like sort of become easier to see now that we're seeing more of the stories explained.
It's definitely the theme throughout is definitely of duality. And what that means, and because we've had like Codename Assassin and Manhunter be like the two sides of the same coin for a while, but I feel like, and even at the start of the book we said, hey, it's not a coincidence we've got this team of 4 dingbats and this green team of 4 kids. Right.
So that idea of having the two equal sides has been a thing since issue 1. Even if the sides that we're looking at have changed a bit since then, that theme's been there the entire time.
Well, there's out of all of them too is like. Manhunter's claimed 2 of the Green Team, right? So I wonder if this leads to a transformed Green Team at the end, right? Like they can start from scratch, and maybe that's also part of it.
Well, it depends what the lesson. I mean, if we get the happy ending to this, then presumably the characters realize we don't need to have a Green Team because that's holding down someone else. But I don't know. I don't know if this is building to a happy ending or if it's building to like a more bitter life lesson that that there's always going to be some form of this existing. It could go that route as well. I don't know. So it's all very fascinating. No, it ends in a really good cliffhanger. Creeper, by the way, like he turns into Creeper in front of Lady Cop, who just knocks him out and leaves him in the street. That's what happens with that. So that's a very interesting thing. And remember, Lady Cop has this helmet. She has the Fate helmet, and we'll see where that goes. But it sounds like Warlord, Starman, and the kids want the helmet back to try and bring back their friend. That's why the kids are helping them. And that's what I theorized last issue as well, is that's what they were working to do. But Lady Cop's got that helmet, so we'll see how that goes. But No, this was a very exciting issue because it feels like a lot of these things are coming together, and the themes, which we've been kind of picking at the entire time, are more like coming into view as more of these like story threads are really starting to click together. It's been a really fun read. It reminds me a lot of Doomsday Clock, and just sort of like, okay, we've got all these plots going on, how do they all connect? And then the discovery as we go of seeing them all start to thematically merge, either in plot or just thematically, is really exciting to me. When it's well written like it is. And obviously the art and the sequencing is fantastic as always.
Yeah.
All that playground stuff with the cracks look great. That two-page spread. Yeah.
I was to say, Fornés being able to shift like the just a tone, right? So that's just a childhood game, right? But when he starts drawing it, when you know the stakes are there, there's a ominousness.
It feels like a shadow. It feels like this girl is like jumping on these lines for her life, and it turns out she is. you know. But it's just again duality. And that story of the like Lady Cop's past, like that was it's just one page of just her face under the bed. Also, it says that the perpetrator like dropped a playing card, and I thought it was going to be a Joker. I was thinking, is this like a Joker thing? But it's not. And we see that the person's boot, they've got like a skull and crossbones on like a white and yellow boot, and they dropped an ace card. I'm not sure who this is meant to be from. Any like quick thought? I was going to look this up actually before we started and I forgot.
Yeah, so this was the origin that I had read about Lady Cop, is that she was the sole survivor of like a slasher.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that, but like these clues to who the slasher himself is quite specific.
But originally, I believe they bring him to justice after she becomes a cop. So I'm just not Lady Cop, Lady Cop. My typing is terrible. Let's see. Liza Warner, right? My computer's saying forever. But yeah, I believe that it was someone, but it wouldn't surprise me if Tom King adds a different layer on there, that it's meant to be Joker-esque, but not Joker.
No, I mean, I don't think it's Joker. The clues that are there do not say Joker, but it was just
but what I'm saying, it is Joker-esque. He's using the language that we associate with Joker, right? The playing card, Yeah,
it was just the playing card that made me think it was about to be a Joker. But when I look at his boot, I'm like, yeah, it was never going to be Joker because that's not a Joker shoe. I don't know what that is.
It's just known as the Killer in Boots. So he never left an ace of spades. This is the Lady Cop, Liza Warner, a young woman who watches beneath the bed as a murderer in cowboy boots slaughters her two roommates, leaving the ace of spades behind as his calling card.
I am very curious if this comes up in some way later. I'm also very curious if it relates to the origin of the Green Team and the kids, because we never see that guy's face either to start with.
Right.
But I do think it's thematically very interesting that we get both the origin of Lady Cop, like her traumatic past, and the incident that created all these kids in the same issue. I think that's smart writing to put them both in the same issue, because it feels like we're getting backstories for a lot of characters together. So that's very good. Yeah. As per usual, it was excellent. Matt, what you rating it?
I mean, this I didn't rate the last one, so I don't remember what I would have given that one, but I'll give this a 9. Solid 9.
Yeah, I think it's a solid 9 out of 10. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. Cannot wait. This is the event of every month. It's the 12-issue Tom King book.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that is that. I do have a Patreon book every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can make myself or Connor read a book at one of the higher tiers. I am on Batman and the Outsiders issue 5 at the time. So this is the second part of a crossover with New Teen Titans at the time. And we had the Fearsome Five. The issue ended with the Fearsome Five getting away from the place exploding, but the Titans and the Outsiders were still there. So this issue very much starts with all them in the water drowning, and it's actually Terra who basically forms an island with her powers, but she passes out before she's able to actually rescue everyone. But then Geoforce comes in and uses his powers to lift the island up. He sort of blasts lava down from his hand to sort of propel the island up. So we get this great big half-page panel of him. It's almost like Superman lifting the land at the end of Superman Returns a little bit, just on a smaller scale. But on top of this like patch of land, you can see all the heroes of all these two teams just sort of like coming to. It's a fun little sequence. So this issue is basically just the teams have to work together to go get the Fearsome Five. The Fearsome Five are going to go to the top of the Empire State Building to use basically Simon's powers to control everyone, kind of like Cerebro from X-Men. So that's like his game plan, and they think all the heroes are dead for a lot of the issue until they show up. The main thing though is that we get some bonding between the characters beforehand, where they're at the Katana like apartment that she's living with Starfire. Not Starfire, sorry. Halo. She's living with Halo.
Yes, Halo.
And they're all there, and they're letting some of the Titans use their showers and stuff like that. So there's some back and forth banter and things like that. Raven's talking to Halo a little bit. Wally's talking to Black Lightning. It's a whole thing. So it's a lot of bonding, it's a lot of characters, but Jace is there and talks about what their plans are and all the rest of it. I do love that when they go after the villains again, like basically they reveal themselves by Metamorpho being like a gravedigger who picks up like one of the, because Simon's like made like mudmen that he can control, so he's got like just like, you know, fodder to fight people with these mudmen. So Metamorpho takes care of that. There is a great scene earlier on though where Dr. Light starts monologuing as if he's the leader, and then Simon's like, no, you're not the leader, and then all of the other members like, yeah, like you did form as technically Dr. Light, but every time you take charge we end up in prison, so yeah, we're kind of all voting against you. And they get rid of him, and Dr. Light ends up being picked up by the heroes because he's running from the mudmen, and they take him for questioning. Also, Simon Dr. Light has like a weird thing here where I thought it was Dr. Light doing something, but it seems to be more something to do with Halo's powers, where Dr. Light seemingly like convinces Halo to fight for him for a minute, and Raven has to go into like shadow form and like sort of like envelop her, and it kind of snaps her out of it. But they're like, what just happened? Because I was like, yeah, Dr. Light doesn't have psychic powers. Why would he be able to like telepathically make her do anything? And Batman's like, it seems to be another mystery about your like identity, Halo. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting that someone was able to like, because he doesn't even say anything out loud. He just thinks, what is it he says? He thinks out, I need to create a diversion for the heroes. And then the next panel on the very next page is Halo saying, create a diversion. Yes, Doctor. So somehow she's like picked up his desires in that moment and then acted on them without like sort of being in control. So I'm not sure where that's going. I don't know too much about Halo as a character, but it was an interesting little bit.
Halo has light-based powers though, right? So maybe there's some crossover.
Yeah. Maybe
Dr. Light.
Maybe it's a light thing. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So Fearsome Five go to the Empire State Building and they break in there. The Titans and the Outsiders are trying to figure out what to do. Cyborg has made a cannon that will basically make them all immune to Simon's powers, which is really handy because in a few pages' time, Simon's going to freeze everyone on the planet psychically. Luckily, all the heroes are still awake though because they've all been hit by this cannon. What was it? Irradiate, they say. We have to go irradiate the others, and he walks out with his big cannon and blasts them all with it. But yes, so Simon takes control. It's not the whole planet. It's actually just New York. He takes control of everyone in New York. And he says, we're the first villains to ever take control of all in New York. Maybe in DC that's true. I feel like in Marvel that's probably happened a million times by the time this comic was published.
That's every Friday.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So the other through line of this issue, though, is that Robin doesn't like that Batman's taking charge. And it's the one bit of writing in it that feels really dated to me, because he just kind of sounds pissy. Like every time like Batman like gives an order or something, Robin has like a thought bubble where he's like, oh, every time I get out on my own, he takes charge and I'm just the boy wonder again. That stupid Batman. You know, I mean, that's not a direct quote, but that's how it comes off.
Freaking dad.
Yeah. It comes off like a pissy teenager, and it feels a little bit immature. I know they're meant to be young right now, but it does come off a little bit like old school in the way it's written. When they go to the Empire State Building to stop the Fearsome Five, Beast Boy's like, you know what, I've always wanted to do this, and he turns in to a big ape, so he can do the King Kong scene, and he's hanging out at the Empire State Building, and he's like, "Who wants to be Fairy?" And no one gets it. But yeah, so he has his King Kong moment. So yes, Batman gives an order for. He basically says, "Hey, you 3 or 4 go and deal with like saving the civilians in the building, and the rest of us will go and deal with the Fearsome Five." And this is the big dramatic point of the issue where Robin says, "No, disregard that. Batman's wrong. We need these 2 to go fight Simon because Halo's powers are going to be important for stopping him, and these 2 need to go here." And he basically puts his foot down. He's like, "Hey, I've been with the Titans longer than you've had a team. I know more about leading a team." And he starts giving these orders. And actually, as a little detail in the art here I really like, is in the next page, Robin's like giving his new orders out to everyone, and Batman's standing behind him, but he's just drawn in silhouette, and it just gives you the sense that Batman's like pissed. He's letting it go. He's letting it happen, but he's like pissed that he's being like overruled here. I just really love that. It's just a simple thing in the art to have him be in silhouette when everyone else isn't, but it really, really works to get the sense that he's brooding. But funnily enough, when they go and fight all the villains and they fight all the Fearsome Five to various degrees, Batman and Robin even work together to take out Gizmo. Shimmer and her brother end up fighting Terra and Geoforce. They all have a big thing, but it's all the superpowered beings who have blasts. So Cyborg, Starfire, Black Lightning, Geoforce, and Halo all fire on Simon, and that neutralizes him. They basically like, what's it to say? Basically you blast through his psychic barrier to get to him, and sure enough they're able to do that, dismantle his device that's amplifying his powers, and it's a whole thing. But it's Halo's stasis aura that actually stops Simon from doing anything and actually puts him to sleep. So they save the day. That's basically it. And then on the last page, they go back and Dr. Light's like hit Jace and escaped because they had him tied up. And he's just left a sign with his costume that says, "I quit." As if, like, yeah, I'm not a villain anymore. Leave me alone. I'm out of the game. It's over. Terra hugs Geoforce, and she's got a thought bubble like, "Oh, you know, your family, Geoforce, but you're going to be so disappointed when I betray all these teenagers because I'm working with Deathstroke." That's basically a little moment that she has. And Batman goes up to Robin and says, "You know what? Like, I guess even the teacher can learn from the pupil." And they shake hands, and Robin says, "Yeah, and I had a good teacher. I had the best there is." And they shake hands whilst all the other people are like standing behind the handshake, and that's the final panel. It's an okay issue. It's good fun. I like some of the small beats that are there. And there's that really nice touch in the art when Robin actually contradicts Batman. And I do appreciate that Batman has to accept that Robin actually made the right call. I do think though, like, their shaking hands at the end feels really easy. Like, it feels like there was more of a conversation to be had there. It feels really quick and cheesy. And I guess maybe that's just a sign of the times, but Robin felt just kind of petulant, and then he was absolutely right, and it feels like there should have been more of an actual conversation about it instead of the quick wrap up. So as a result, the issue is a lot of fighting, and it's a lot of characters, because we've got 2 superhero teams. We've got a villain team of like 5 or 6 characters. There's so many characters that everything is very quick and snapshot about how it deals with things. There's fun to be had, but I didn't like it as much as, say, some of the actual just regular issues that we've had so far of Batman and the Outsiders. But there are nice touches in the art. There's some nice moments and nice character beats that I do appreciate. It was nice having like Raven interact with Halo. There's a moment where Halo's showing Raven her room when they're at the apartment, and Raven comments how like nice, bright and bubbly everything is, and it reminded me a lot of like Wednesday Addams. Like, I never watched beyond episode 1 of that TV show, but it was a lot like her, like just being like, this is very bubbly and light and happy, and just like deadpan to the cheery roommate. It reminded me of that quite a bit. So there was a bit of fun chemistry there for sure. The issue as a whole though, I'd probably just give it like a 7. It's entertaining enough, but it doesn't really have too much meat in the bone. The Batman-Robin conflict, well, it's got an interesting beat where he actually contradicts him. It's kind of rushed and just kind of feels like it's over with as quickly as possible. So, you know, I'm looking forward to getting back to just a regular Batman the Outsiders issue next time, where apparently they take on the Cryonic Man. So,
Hey.
Is that another Freeze villain? Is this a new Freeze villain?
It would have to be with a name like that.
Holy shit, we've already got like 8 of them, but we didn't know about the Cryonic Man. I'm excited now.
This might be his only appearance, though, so...
I don't care. He can be down there with Minister Blizzard as one of the shit, like, D-tier ones, but all the same. Notice how I didn't say Cold Snap. Cold Snap's above Minister Blizzard in this hierarchy.
Yeah.
Anywho, that is my Patreon book. So that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favourites of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and top 5 books. So Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
Man, there's a lot in Danger Street. That book was super dense.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with the Grapes because that was a good solid laugh. With Warlord and whichever, I think it was non-fat. That boy loves grapes. That's one thing that's for certain.
There's a few good things in Titans that I would like to Teen Titans that I'd like to say, but ultimately, Danger Street's going to take it here with probably Lady Cop's origin. Although I do think the kid's origin, in the way that feels quite intimidating when you realize what the stakes are, even though the kids don't realize it, is really, really well done. I'll say that Lady Cops is good, but I'll say the kids their game where they don't know the stakes. I think
I figured that was gonna be yours. That's why I went with the Grapes.
Yeah,
so I'll variety.
I'll give that the win. Cover of the week. I was having a look while you were talking about Spirit World.
Yeah.
There's a cool Jock Superman cover. I will say it's a bit moody for Superman, but it does look quite nice. I can't deny it. It's pretty. There's a Doc Shaner Teen Titans cover with Donna, which is pretty nice. There's also a cool Ben Oliver Shazam cover, which I love the art of. I would say that I don't love it as a cover overall just because it's the evil Billy, but the actual art quality is phenomenal. That said, my pick is the regular cover for Danger Street because it's this horror. It looks like it's meant to look like Todd Browning's Freaks or something like that, but it's the Outsiders. It's this old black and white photo of like these kids who are all like different and monstrous. I think that looks great. So that's my pick. What you got?
Yeah. So there's a Somni Superman cover that looks really, really great. That Danger Street one for the main cover is also really, really nice. There's a Jimenez Superman annual cover.
Oh, I noticed that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that one looks real cool too. But mine's gonna be from Teen Titans, and it's the Paulo Rivera cover, which has got the Titans all lined up. Looks like someone's taking a picture on their phone. I think it's Wally. So getting the blur. So.
I feel like some people think we'll list almost every cover when we do this section. No. We really don't. Some of these books have like 8 covers. Like, even though we mentioned like 8, that's only like less than half. So I
just want to let them know what we're picking from too. So if they want to go look, Yeah,
this is the shithouse, and these covers can often make good phone backgrounds or whatever, so it's always worth having a look. All right, art of the week. What you got?
I mean, I would love to say Lupacchino because I do love Lupacchino, but it is a Fornés week, so it's just crazy. Like the sequential art there too. There's another moment I wanted to mention. I forgot in Danger Street till now, but when Jack Ryder's getting sloshed, right? He goes to pour the wine, he misses it, and Fornés draws it just like perfectly running down the cup onto the table. So it's so good, man. Fornés is on top.
Yeah, my pick is Fornés, although I do want to shout out David Baldeón on the Zatanna book, because I do actually really like that art, but the Fornés stuff is just next level, so it has to be that. But all right, Matt, top 5, go.
All right, so number 1 with a bullet is Danger Street. Number 2 is World's Finest Teen Titans. 3 is Superman Annual. 4 is Shazam, The Night Terrors. And then 5 is going to be Spirit World.
Yeah, mine's going to be pretty similar here. Number 1 is Danger Street. Number 2 is World's Finest Teen Titans. Number 3 is the Superman Annual. After that, I guess a bit... I think it probably is... I think the Shazam and Zatanna books are pretty even. One, I like the art in more. The other one, I like the story ideas more. I think I'll say Zatanna at number 4 and Shazam at 5, but it's basically a toss-up. But the fact that I've got both of those above the main Night Terrors book should tell you everything that you need to know. So there you go. That is our picks for this week. I will tell you what is coming next week from DC Comics. So coming next week, we have Batman Superman World's Finest, issue 18. We have Night Terror's Superman, issue 2. We have Night Terror's Nightwing, issue 2. We have Batman White Knight Presents Generation Joker 4. We got Night Terror's Wonder Woman, issue 2. Tales of the Titans, issue 2. Hot Girl, issue 2. Night Terror's Catwoman, issue 2. We have The Vigil, issue 4. We have Night Terror's Punchline, issue 2. And we have The Penguin, issue 0, which I didn't realize that was getting an issue 0. But
this is
this is the reprint of the backups.
125 through 127 backups. So we read those.
Yeah, I really thought we were getting a Tom King book there starting next week, and we're not. If you didn't read those backups, though, it's probably worth reading this for the background for that Penguin book that's coming out. But if you read the Penguin backups in Batman, which I think it was Batman they were in anyway, then you don't need to. We also have Harley Quinn Black, White, and Red are issue 2, and Mad Magazine issue 3. So yeah, weird week. Obviously, World's Finest, The Vigil are the ones and Hot Girl, I guess, are the ones that we'll be looking at mainly. And then for Night Terrors, like, I'm trying to remember if I liked any of the issue ones of these.
I'm gonna read Superman because it does got the Leah Williams story.
That's right. Okay, I remember that now vaguely.
And I want to know how the Philip Kennedy Johnson.
Wait, does it? Wasn't that was Action Comics that had that?
Oh, it was Action.
Yeah, that wasn't Superman.
No, this is the Williamson one. Oh man, this is where Supergirl shows up at the end, punching through the dreams.
Oh yeah, I didn't like that.
I'll hop on that grenade because I'm not doing Nightwing again.
I mean, I might read it just because otherwise I've only got 3 books. I think, and I might read Nightwing just for the morbid curiosity. But that is it. Like I never read Catwoman,
no,
or Punchline. Did I read the Wonder Woman one? I don't remember.
I did. So I have Hot Girl, Titans, Superman, World's Finest. I can hop on to and The Vigil. I'll still, if you want to read Nightwing, I'll read Wonder Woman.
Wait, what Titans are you talking about? What Titans?
Tightwing. I meant to say Nightwing, not Titans.
Okay.
But no, there's the Tales of the Teen Titans.
That's what you're talking about. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about? What Titans? No. But you're right. Tales of the Titans, the Raven issue's out. Yeah, so as a bit of a quieter week for us because like most of the Night Terrors tie-ins, but I think at the very least we'll read one each just to comment on it. But I mean, this was not a good week for Night Terrors last month, so I don't suspect it's going to be much better this month. But hey, we got World's Finest, we got Hot Girl, and we got The Vigil, so that's some. All right, we'll see you next week for that. Let us know what you thought of this week's books. Of course, we always like to hear, and the comments are on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast, or I should say X now, I suppose. Of course, you can support all the content, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help us out. But I am starving, so I'm wrapping this up. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.